What if I told you that most of the pain you carry doesn't belong to you? That the heavy burden on your back, the sleepless nights, the silent tears, they are not the weight of your soul, but the weight of your care for things that do not serve your peace? There comes a point in life when you realize that happiness is not built on how much you achieve, how many applaud your name, or how perfectly you please others. No, happiness is born when you set yourself free from the endless chase of validation, from the empty hunger of approval, and from the obsession of controlling what was never in your hands to begin with. This speech will show you why the less you care, the happier you get. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you'll see that letting go is not weakness. It is the beginning of strength. You'll discover that indifference to noise is the secret melody of freedom. And once you learn it, you will never hear life the same way again. Caring is beautiful. To care for the people you love, to care for the dreams you carry, to care for the values that shape your life, this is the essence of being human. But there is a difference between caring deeply and caring about everything. When you hand over your heart to every whisper, every sideways glance, every fleeting opinion, you chain yourself to a prison without walls. The bars are invisible, but they are strong. They are made of worry, of anxiety, of a need to please, and of a fear of being misunderstood. And the cruelest part is this: you lock the door yourself and then wonder why your spirit feels trapped. There is nothing more exhausting than living as if the world is the judge of your worth. When you wake up each morning and measure your value by how many people approve of you, when you go to bed at night wondering what they thought of what you said, what you wore, what you posted, you are no longer living, you are performing. You are rehearsing for an audience that does not even care enough to stay for the whole play. And this endless performance robs you of peace. It robs you of the joy that comes from simply existing unapologetically as you are. We are born free, with laughter that bursts from our chests, with voices that do not tremble, with steps that do not hesitate. But somewhere along the way, we are taught to bend, to fold, to mold ourselves into something that fits neatly into other people's expectations. We are taught to care about every opinion, about what family will say, about what neighbors will whisper, about what strangers on a screen might think. And soon, we are no longer living from the inside out. We are living from the outside in, our spirit suffocating under the weight of everybody else's judgments. Caring about everything is like opening the windows of your soul and allowing every passerby to come in and rearrange the furniture. One day they tell you that your laugh is too loud, so you learn to silence it. The next day they say your silence is too cold, so you force a laugh you do not feel. One moment they say you are too ambitious, the next moment they say you lack drive. And you run in circles, trying to keep up with their shifting winds until you collapse from the exhaustion of trying to be everything to everyone. The truth is, the more you care about everything, the less of yourself remains. Freedom begins when you recognize that not every voice deserves your ear. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every glance deserves your insecurity. When you allow yourself to care less about what is meaningless, you make room for what is sacred. You begin to breathe lighter. You begin to speak with honesty. You begin to laugh from a place that is real, not rehearsed. And slowly the prison doors creak open because the lock was never outside of you. It was always in your hands. Think of how many times in your life you have dimmed your own light because you were worried about being too much. How many times you swallowed your truth because you feared rejection. How many times you said yes with a trembling voice when your whole soul wanted to say no. Each of those moments was another bar on your prison cell. Each moment was another chain tightening around your spirit. And yet, the same way those chains were created, they can be broken by choice, by choosing not to care about everything. Some people will not understand you. Let them not understand. Some people will not like you. Let them not like you. Some people will twist your words, doubt your motives, question your worth. Let them do so. The sky does not stop being vast because one person closes their eyes. The ocean does not stop being deep because someone is too afraid to swim. And you do not stop being valuable because someone is too blind to see your worth. Their judgment is not your prison unless you let it be. When you stop caring about everything, you do not stop loving. You start loving with clarity. You do not stop striving. You start striving with focus. You no longer scatter yourself into 1,000 meaningless fragments. Instead, you gather yourself whole and unapologetic. You realize that caring less is not about hardening your heart, but about protecting your spirit. It is about saying, I cannot carry the weight of every thought, every voice, every expectation. I choose to carry only what belongs to me, my peace, my joy, my truth. Imagine a bird in a cage. Every day it sings, not for joy, but because it hopes the song will please the hand that feeds it. Its wings ache to stretch, but the bars will not allow it. That is what happens when you care about everything. You become the bird, beautiful yet bound. Now imagine the day the cage is opened. The bird no longer sings for approval. It sings for the wind, for the sky, for itself. That is what happens when you learn to let go of caring too much. You fly. It takes courage to break free from this prison. It takes courage to say, I will no longer be shaped by your opinions. It takes courage to walk away from the performance and step into the raw, unpolished truth of your being. But happiness demands courage. Peace demands courage. Freedom demands courage. And when you finally gather the strength to care less, you will discover something astonishing, that life feels lighter, people feel kinder, the world feels wider, not because it changed, but because you did. And so I say to you, if you feel trapped, if you feel burdened, if you feel as though your joy has been smothered beneath the weight of too much caring, then know this: the key is already in your hand. You do not have to beg for release. You do not have to wait for permission. You do not have to fight for someone to come and set you free. You have only to care less. Care less about the noise, the gossip, the judgments, the shifting winds of opinion. Care more about your heart, your truth, your freedom. And when you do, you will see that the prison was never real at all. Peace is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is not something that falls from the sky into your lap one morning while you sip your coffee. Peace is not given, it is chosen. And it is chosen most powerfully when you learn the art of letting go. Too many of us live like clenched fists, holding on to everything: old wounds, past betrayals, missed opportunities, grudges that burn like hot coals, and the constant desire to control how life should unfold. And yet we wonder why our spirits feel heavy, why our hearts ache, why our minds never seem to rest. The truth is, peace cannot live in a place that is already too crowded. It enters only when you release, when you surrender, when you let go. Think about the way water flows. If you try to hold water in your hands, the tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. But when you open your palms, the water rests gently, almost effortlessly. Life is the same way. The harder you grip, the more restless you become. But the moment you loosen your grasp, the moment you stop fighting to control what was never meant to be controlled, peace begins to settle over you like sunlight breaking through clouds. Letting go does not mean you do not care. It does not mean you lack ambition or passion. It does not mean you stop loving or stop dreaming. Letting go means you have finally learned the difference between what belongs to you and what does not. It is saying, I cannot carry the past on my back and still walk into the future with strength. It is saying, I cannot control the wind, but I can adjust my sails. It is saying, I will no longer pour my energy into things that only leave me empty. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is courage. There are people who will hurt you. There are words that will cut you. There are losses that will break you. And if you carry each one of them like a stone in your pocket, soon you will find yourself too heavy to move forward. Life was never meant to be lived with every wound pressed close to your chest. Healing comes not from holding tighter to your pain, but from releasing it. You cannot rewrite what has already been lived. You cannot force apologies out of closed lips. You cannot turn back time to fix what is already broken, but you can lay it down. You can say, I will no longer let yesterday steal the breath of today. And that is where peace begins. Some of us are chained not by what happened, but by what we expected. We pictured life unfolding in a certain way. We dreamed of timelines, of outcomes, of paths that should have been ours. And when life dared to turn another direction, we clung to our disappointment like it was a lifeline. But disappointment is not a lifeline. It is a chain, and the more you pull against it, the tighter it binds. Letting go means making peace with the life that is, instead of being haunted by the life that never came to be. It means trusting that even in detours, there is purpose. Even in endings, there is renewal. Even in silence, there is wisdom waiting to be heard. Peace asks you to stop being at war with yourself. It asks you to release the idea that you must be perfect, that you must have it all figured out, that you must always be strong. There is a gentleness in letting go. It is like placing a burden down after carrying it for too long. It is like exhaling after holding your breath for minutes on end. It is like saying to yourself, I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to heal. I am allowed to be. Peace is found not in the constant struggle, but in the surrender of it. We live in a world that glorifies holding on to grudges, holding on to images, holding on to achievements, holding on to control. We are taught that letting go is giving up, but there is more power in release than in resistance. The tree does not mourn the falling of its leaves. The river does not mourn the rocks it leaves behind. The sky does not mourn the passing of the clouds, and yet everything is renewed because of what it let go. Why then should we cling to what no longer serves us, as if our worth depends on the weight we carry? Sometimes letting go is not about people or past events. It is about the noise within, the overthinking, the endless replaying of conversations, the need to fix what was never yours to fix. Peace is found in quieting the mind, in refusing to let every thought run wild, in choosing to sit still and breathe, in trusting that silence does not mean emptiness, it means space. And in that space, peace blooms. Letting go is not an instant act. It is not one choice made and done. It is a practice. Some days you will lay a burden down, and the next morning you may find yourself picking it up again. That is part of the process. Do not punish yourself for being human. Simply set it down once more, again and again, until the habit of holding on dissolves. With every release, your soul learns a new rhythm, a lighter step, a softer way of being. When you learn to let go, you realize peace was never hiding from you. It was waiting for you all along, standing just beyond the door of your resistance. The key was never far. It was in your hands. You needed only to unclench your fists, to loosen your grip, to stop fighting for control over what was never yours. And once you do, the air feels different. Your heart feels lighter. Your laughter comes easier. Because peace has finally made a home where worry once lived. There is a quiet kind of strength that does not raise its voice, that does not clench its fists, that does not waste its energy proving a point. It is the strength of indifference, not the indifference of apathy, not the cold dismissal of a hardened heart, but the kind of indifference that shields your spirit from harm. It is the wisdom of knowing what deserves your attention and what deserves only your silence. It is the power of walking away without bitterness, of shrugging off what was meant to wound you, of refusing to hand over your peace in exchange for their noise. Life will always offer you opportunities to be disturbed, There will always be someone ready to test your patience, to belittle your worth, to challenge your dignity. If you let every voice enter your spirit, if you react to every provocation, you will exhaust yourself before you even reach your true battles. Not every comment deserves your response. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not every storm deserves your sails. And the sooner you learn this, the freer you become. Indifference is a form of protection, a shield invisible but unbreakable. It is like a glass wall between you and the chaos. You can see it, you can hear it, but you no longer let it touch you. When someone throws words meant to cut, you let them shatter on the glass. When someone tries to drag you into their storm, you remain grounded in your calm. That is the power of indifference. It keeps your spirit from being tossed around by winds that were never yours to carry. Many people confuse indifference with weakness. They think silence means surrender. They think walking away means defeat. But indifference is not cowardice, it is wisdom. It is saying, I will not waste my precious energy on things that do not matter. It is saying, I refuse to make myself small just to prove myself to you. It is saying, my peace is more valuable than your chaos. There is a deep courage in choosing not to fight every battle, not because you cannot win, but because some victories are not worth the cost of your spirit. Consider the lion. The lion does not roar at every barking dog. The lion does not chase every insect buzzing in its path. The lion knows its power, and because it knows, it does not waste itself proving it. That is the essence of indifference. Confidence so rooted, so steady, that the noise of others cannot shake it. When you learn to stand in that space, you will discover that most of the things you once reacted to are not even worth a second glance. Indifference is also a healer. Think of how much pain we carry because we allow other people's words to sink deep into our bones. One cruel remark, one dismissive glance, one rejection, and we replay it over and over until it shapes the way we see ourselves. But when you practice indifference, you stop giving those words power. You hear them, but they do not enter you. You see them, but they do not define you. You allow them to fall away, and in their absence, your spirit begins to heal. There is also indifference to the past, the mistakes, the regrets, the what-ifs that haunt you like shadows. You cannot walk into tomorrow if your eyes are forever turned backward. Indifference to the past does not mean you erase it. It means you no longer let it dictate your steps. It means you learn from it, bow to its lessons, and then let it fade into silence. It is a refusal to let yesterday keep writing the story of today. And then there is indifference to the approval of others. This is perhaps the hardest to learn, for we are creatures who long to be seen, to be accepted, to be loved. But the need for constant approval is a chain around the neck of your spirit. It keeps you from speaking your truth. It keeps you from taking risks. It keeps you from being free. Indifference does not kill your longing for connection. It frees you from the desperation of it. It teaches you to say, I am whole with or without your applause. And in that wholeness, you discover a peace that no crowd can give and no crowd can take away. Indifference is not about ignoring life. It is about choosing what deserves your life force. It is the discipline of stepping back, breathing deep, and asking yourself, does this serve my peace? Does this serve my purpose? Does this deserve me? And if the answer is no, you let it go. You do not chase, you do not argue, you do not bend, you simply release it, and in that release, you protect the most sacred part of you, your spirit. The world will tell you that you must fight for everything, that you must react, defend, prove, respond, justify. But wisdom whispers a different truth. It whispers that your silence can be louder than your words, that your calm can be more powerful than your rage, that your indifference can be more devastating than your retaliation. For when you refuse to be moved by what is petty, you rise into what is profound. And let me tell you, There is nothing more liberating than walking away from noise and realizing you lost nothing. There is nothing more empowering than choosing not to care about things that once consumed you. There is nothing more beautiful than discovering that your spirit is unshaken, untouched, unbroken, because you learned the sacred art of indifference. Indifference protects you from being drained by battles that do not belong to you. It protects you from the endless hunger of validation. It protects you from the poison of resentment. It keeps your spirit light, your heart free, your mind clear. And in this protection, you are finally able to direct your energy toward the things that truly matter: your dreams, your growth, your joy, your love. Everything else fades into background noise, and you no longer feel the need to respond to it. So when the world comes at you with its noise, when people push you to react, when the storms rage around you, remember this: you are not required to join every battle you are invited to. You are not required to open your heart to every careless word. You are not required to bend under the weight of every judgment. Sometimes the greatest strength is found not in resistance, but in indifference. For indifference is not the absence of care, it is the presence of self-respect. It is the choice to guard your spirit, to preserve your peace, and to walk through this world with a heart that refuses to be broken by what does not matter. Joy is not waiting for you in someone else's smile. It is not hiding in the applause of a crowd. It is not tucked inside a compliment or sealed inside approval. Joy is already here, alive in the present, breathing in this very moment. But too often we chase it outside of ourselves. We tie our joy to the nods of others, to the validation of strangers, to the shifting winds of approval. And in doing so, we rob ourselves of the sweetness that could have been tasted now. There is a dangerous lie we are taught from the earliest years, that our worth depends on the recognition of others, that we must earn the right to feel good, that joy is a reward given when we impress, when we please, when we succeed in the eyes of the world. And so we live performing, polishing our image, contorting ourselves into what will win applause. We live as if joy is a prize handed out by others rather than a birthright we already possess. But joy belongs to the present moment. It belongs to the air filling your lungs right now, to the laughter you share when no one is watching, to the stillness of knowing you exist, and that is enough. Joy is not waiting at the end of a finish line. It is scattered across the path itself. And yet, we miss it because our eyes are fixed on someone else's face, searching for approval. Approval is fragile. One moment it lifts you high, the next it abandons you. People clap today and forget your name tomorrow. They celebrate your triumphs and criticize your stumbles. They project their fears, their insecurities, their judgments onto you. If your joy depends on their approval, then your joy will forever be fragile too, rising and falling with their moods, their opinions, their fleeting attention. You become like a leaf in the wind, tossed around by every breeze of acceptance or rejection. But the present moment is steady. The present moment does not abandon you. It does not ask you to perform. It does not demand perfection. It only asks you to be, to breathe, to notice, to embrace the miracle that you are alive right now. Joy belongs here. It belongs to the taste of your morning tea, to the warmth of sunlight on your skin, to the sound of your own laughter echoing in an empty room. It belongs to the conversations where you lose track of time, to the feeling of your heartbeat reminding you that you are still here, still capable of love, still capable of growth. When you anchor yourself in the present, you realize that joy was never outside of you. It was never waiting in the applause. It was never hiding in the approval. It was here all along, patient, quiet, waiting for you to look inward instead of outward. We have been conditioned to chase milestones as if they alone will grant us joy, the promotion, the title, the award, the acknowledgement. But how many times have you reached a milestone only to feel the joy fade as quickly as it arrived? That is because joy tied to approval is fleeting. It vanishes once the applause fades. But joy rooted in presence lasts because it does not depend on anything outside of you. It depends only on your awareness, your openness, your willingness to savor the moment you are in. Think of a child. Children laugh freely, dance without hesitation, sing without caring if the note is perfect. Their joy is wild and present. They do not wait for permission to feel it. They do not ask, "Do you approve of my laughter? Do you approve of my joy?" They simply live it. Somewhere along the way, we forget this truth. We begin to seek the nod of the world before allowing ourselves to celebrate. But joy is not granted by approval. It is reclaimed by presence. To live anchored in the present is to stop postponing joy. It is to say, "I will not wait until I am richer, thinner, more successful, more admired before I allow myself to be happy." It is to claim joy now, in this imperfect body, in this uncertain season, in this messy moment, because this moment is all we truly have. And if we do not embrace joy here, we may never embrace it at all. Approval is addictive. It gives you a high, but then it demands more. You get the compliment, but soon you crave the next one. You achieve one success, but immediately you fear losing the spotlight. The hunger never ends. But presence is nourishing. It gives you joy that does not depend on more. It gives you peace with enough. It teaches you to delight in the little, to celebrate the ordinary, to find magic in what you once overlooked. When you no longer tie your joy to approval, you begin to live authentically. You speak your truth without fear. You create not for applause, but for expression. You love not to be admired, but because your heart overflows. You rest without guilt. You breathe without rushing. You exist without needing to justify your worth. And in that authenticity, joy blooms like a flower that finally has sunlight. The present moment is where freedom lives. It is where peace rests. It is where joy belongs. And when you claim it, when you stop handing over your happiness to the fragile hands of approval, you rise into a way of living that cannot be stolen by rejection or diminished by silence. For you know that joy is not out there. It is right here, and it has been waiting for you all along. Life is not short of noise. It will always pull at you, distract you, demand you, and fill your hands with what does not belong to your heart. If you are not careful, you will find yourself pouring your energy into 1,000 small things that drain you instead of the few sacred things that sustain you. Caring less is not about becoming careless. It is about becoming wise. It is about learning to withdraw your energy from what is empty so that you can invest it in what is meaningful. When you begin to care less about the things that do not matter, you open space for the things that do. Every day you are given a choice of where to place your attention, where to spend your emotions, where to direct your energy. And yet, too often we waste this gift. We spend hours worrying about what strangers think, rehearsing conversations that ended years ago, chasing after people who have no intention of valuing us, scrolling endlessly through the noise of other people's lives, and then we wonder why our souls feel weary, why our dreams feel distant, why our joy feels shallow. It is because our space is full, cluttered with things that do not nourish us, with cares that were never meant for us to carry. Imagine your heart as a garden. If you plant weeds in every corner, if you water them daily, if you allow them to spread unchecked, soon the flowers will wither. The beauty that was meant to bloom will be choked out by what does not belong. Caring less is the discipline of refusing to water weeds. It is the courage to say, not every voice deserves my attention. Not every battle deserves my energy. Not every invitation deserves my presence. It is the wisdom of tending to your garden with intention, of choosing carefully what you allow to grow inside you. When you care less about what drains you, you suddenly find yourself with room to breathe. You begin to rediscover the simple joys you once overlooked. The warmth of a meal, the laughter of a friend, the stillness of a quiet evening. You make space for creativity, for rest, for growth, for love. You make space for the very things that make life worth living. For the truth is, you cannot hold everything. Something will always slip through your fingers. And if your hands are too full of what does not matter, you will miss what does. So much of our exhaustion comes not from doing too much, but from doing too much of the wrong things. We fill our calendars with obligations we dread, our minds with opinions that poison, our spirits with comparisons that steal joy. But the moment you decide to care less about those things, you begin to reclaim your energy for what matters most. You begin to live not out of pressure, but out of purpose. You begin to notice that the best parts of life are not found in constant striving, but in intentional living. There is a misconception that to care less is to harden your heart, to close yourself off, to stop loving, but the opposite is true. When you care less about what drains you, you actually make more space for love. You free your heart to love more deeply the people who matter, to love more fully the dreams that nourish you, to love more honestly the life that is unfolding before you. You are not less caring, you are more selective. You are not less loving, you are more intentional. And because of that, your love becomes stronger, purer, more resilient. Think about the relationships you hold on to, even though they exhaust you. Think about the arguments you revisit, even though they bring no peace. Think about the fears you replay, even though they bear no fruit. Each one takes up space in your spirit, space that could have been filled with joy, with creativity, with vision, with love. Caring less about those empty spaces is not abandonment, it is alignment. It is deciding that your life will no longer be crowded with weeds when it was meant to bloom with flowers. There is also freedom in caring less about control. We live under the illusion that if we worry enough, if we plan enough, if we grip tightly enough, we can shape the outcomes of life. But all this does is crowd our minds with anxiety, filling us with fear of the unknown. When you care less about controlling every detail, you open space for trust. You open space for faith. You open space for life to surprise you. And in that surrender, peace finds you. Caring less is also about protecting your energy from the noise of comparison. How often do we measure ourselves against the lives of others, scrolling endlessly, wondering if we are behind, if we are lacking, if we are failing? This is wasted space, stolen joy, borrowed pain. When you care less about measuring yourself against others, you create room to measure yourself against your own growth. You stop chasing their race and begin to run your own. And in that space, fulfillment grows. We were not created to scatter ourselves into 1,000 meaningless pieces. We were created to live with intention, to give ourselves to what truly matters: love, purpose, growth, peace, joy. But these things require space, they require room to breathe, and if you are always filling your spirit with the weight of what does not matter, you leave no room for what does. So you learn the discipline of release. You learn to unclench your fists from the things that drain you. You learn to let the small things pass without clinging to them. You learn to walk away from noise, from chaos, from the endless chase for approval. And as you do, your life begins to feel lighter. You begin to see more clearly. You begin to notice the things that were always there, waiting patiently for you to give them space. Because the truth is, you were never meant to care about everything. You were meant to care deeply about a few things: your peace, your purpose, your people, your growth. And when you finally make the choice to care less about the noise, you open your hands to receive what matters most. There is a word so small it can be spoken in a single breath, yet it carries the weight of freedom. That word is no. For some, it rolls off the tongue with ease. For others, it trembles on the lips